Hello, are we on?
Hello.
Can you hear me okay?
Hi, John.
Hi.
Sorry. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good, good, good. Sorry, I'm a bit disoriented today because I was rushing around.
That's okay.
Just adjusting my thing. Is this angle okay for you?
Yes, perfect.
All right, good. So, Mr. Friedrich
Friedrich Nietzsche.
Nietzsche.
Yes.
Mr. Friedrich Nietzsche is very, very interesting character,
Uh-huh.
and he has been talking to me uh, since yesterday night, since morning really,
Yes.
because I didn't feel him around. I saw a video of him
Okay.
online.
Uh-huh.
It was a 12-minute video about him, and then boom, he was there, and it sort of helps me connect to his energy.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah. So
Okay.
so he's here. He's been patiently waiting. He keeps commenting in between.
Uh-huh.
And today, Eric is not here, as in so much.
Okay.
He will pop in if I need him, but he's not here. He's somewhere else. He's not
Gotcha.
with us as such so much like the other session.
Okay.
So how do you want to start?
I guess we could start with a question for Mr. Nietzsche. Oh, are we calling him Herr Nietzsche? Is
He likes Mr. I think he
Mr.
seems very. He doesn't seem very. He seems very modern in
Okay.
his.
Uh-huh.
So he likes Mr.
Okay. So we'll just start with the first question for Mr. Nietzsche. And my question is this, Mr. Nietzsche, is that probably after Plato and Aristotle, you're probably the third most famous name in the history of Western philosophy. And I think that a lot of people, when they come to philosophy for the first time, tend to read either Plato or your works. You've had an enormously, just a huge influence over the subsequent history of Western philosophy and culture. And what I'm wondering is, when you got to the other side, did this come as a surprise to you, given the fact that it was so difficult for you to find an audience in your lifetime?
He's talking about how this happens with everyone who is ahead of their time
Right.
in their thinking. And he's saying, I want to start with first saying hello to you, John.
Thank you. Hi. It's a pleasure to meet you.
You didn't do the formal sort of hellos. And he's saying, he's talking about, I'm very excited to talk in this era because what I'm going to say makes much more sense now, he says. So he's talking about your question. He's saying this usually happens with people who are quite ahead of their time in thinking, which he was, he believes. And he says it wasn't easy. And as in there were points in there were moments in his life where he questioned his own thinking a lot. And he's saying and he's saying he's still waiting on a lot of things. So there are many things he's saying which are still being considered as possibilities, which have not been sort of proven as yes, what he said does make sense, sort of a thing. So he's saying he is very he's still in the waiting process, but he's very happy that a lot of it has now been accepted.
Ah, okay.
And it makes him happy to see that his name is valued.
Yes. Mr. Nietzsche, in your writings, you started off by being very much influenced by Arthur Schopenhauer and his pessimistic worldview. Schopenhauer basically said that life is a mistake. Life is based on suffering, and it's a kind of cosmic mistake, and it's something that should not have been. And a lot of your philosophy seems to have sort of turned that upside down by saying a heroic yes to life. Do you still stand by that? Is life something that is it absolutely something that you unquestionably say yes to, no matter what kind of suffering is involved?
Very, very interesting question that is. um, he says yes. And he's talking about what an adventure this life is.
Yes.
He likes the fact that it is adventurous, exhilarating, exciting, unpredictable. And he likes the risk factor in life. He's saying life still excites me. Life on earth as a human still excites him. But he's taking me to the afterlife part now. And he's talking about we get so attracted to the mystical afterlife, and it's sort of that yearning to go to heaven, to the afterlife. It's almost like we don't value or we look down upon this life. And he's talking about he wasn't comfortable with that idea because he saw a lot of value in this life, and he still stands by that thinking, that philosophy. And he still sees a lot of value in this life, and that's why he says that he still stands by his philosophy.
Okay. You were also very much influenced by the operas of Richard Wagner, and you had a personal friendship with Wagner, and but then you had a falling out with him, and I was wondering, what was it that finally turned you off of Wagner's music? What was it that it was like so seductive and metaphysical and otherworldly, and it sort of turns the attention to the other world and away from this world, or what? Was it some other reason?
Was this guy you're talking about very much influenced by the religion?
He was very much influenced by Arthur Schopenhauer, the guy we just talked about a second ago, with his pessimistic view of the world. And he was very influential on Nietzsche, and especially on his first book, The Birth of Tragedy. But they had this falling out, and so I was just curious what the...
He's talking about religion being the reason for it.
Okay, yeah, that's what I figured. The Christianity that came into Wagner's last opera, Parsifal.
Oh, I see. Also, he's talking about the religion. He's saying it was the ideas of religion and what he believed in, and it didn't match up with his own.
That's what I figured. Okay. Your first book, though, The Birth of Tragedy, was published in 1872, and you were only 24. And by the way, it's still my personal favorite of all of your books.
He says that was his best work.
Yeah, I love it.
You said
that. It was later, in your later writings, you kind of denounced it as immature writing, but in it, you came up with an idea that was very influential on Oswald Spengler, namely that when the intellect gains the upper hand in a society, and in The Birth of Tragedy, you were talking specifically about the rise of Socrates, going around questioning everything. Socrates was skeptical about absolutely everything, and he sort of analyzed the Greek culture forms out of existence, you wrote in The Birth of Tragedy. I was wondering if do you see the intellect, is there a point where the intellect can become so dangerous that it does become a culturally destructive force, something that can do more harm than good? Or should it know no bounds?
He says he was influenced by Socrates quite a lot. It made him feel powerful. Socrates made him feel powerful the way he dealt with his life. He's talking about intelligence in a way. he was talking about, he's dividing it into two parts, intelligence and emotional intelligence. So intelligence combined with emotional intelligence is powerful. Intelligence with a numb emotional quotient to it is dangerous. That's how he wants to say.
Okay.
So intelligence with emotion is powerful. Intelligence with numbness towards the emotion is destructive.
It can be culturally destructive. Okay.
Yeah. So I think he's talking about sensitivity as well.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you choose to focus your intelligence? In what areas? So intelligence on itself cannot be tagged as positive or negative, or all good or all bad. So it has to be combined with emotional quotient as well.
Okay. The Birth of Tragedy, your first book, was essentially written from the viewpoint of the Greek world, but with your book, you wrote several other books for a while. It was like you were trying to find your way, and then it seems like you hit the maturity of your thought with Thus Spake Zarathustra, where you switched to a religious founder who was a Persian, and the Persians were the enemies of the Greeks. Was this shift deliberate, the shifting from the Greeks to their enemies, the Persians, with Zarathustra being the great founder of Zoroastrianism, the great Persian religion? Was that a kind of a deliberate shift, I'm wondering? Like you were taking up the viewpoint of their enemies as though you were...
He's talking about it being a quest to find answers. He's saying, do you know at all what is the birth date of Mr. Friedrich?
1844.
Specific date?
Oh, I don't remember. No, not off the top of my head.
He might have been a Libran, I think, probably in October. Because he's talking about balanced view, which is a very Libran quality.
The scales? The scales?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So,
that makes sense.
So he's talking about how he wanted to have both perspectives in his consciousness or in his understanding, to have a complete picture and to make his own views about things. So he's saying that it was like a quest to find answers that drew him to the other, the enemies, as you put it. And that was the reason that he was attracted to know more about them.
Okay, and then in that book, you came up with the philosophical idea that you're most famous for, the concept of the Superman, the Übermensch, the one who overcomes conventional notions of morality and says yes to life in his efforts to create great new things, especially new value systems, such as what Napoleon attempted, for instance. But I was wondering if you thought that what the Nazis did kind of took your philosophy and went too far with it. I mean, wasn't Hitler a type of Superman? Wasn't he someone who transcended the mere opposition of good and evil, which you said was a Christian inheritance of a slave morality based on resentment against power? Didn't he? I mean, isn't he an example of the kind of figure that you were talking about, or does he not embody that?
No, he was. He's talking about incorrect interpretation of that. So he was, when you were talking about overcoming the morals, he took me towards Buddhism. Okay, and he's explaining it very well. To create the Uberman, the Superman, you have to question the good and the bad both, not just the bad. He's saying, okay, you have to become neutral Okay, he's saying he's explaining his how, when he said overcoming the moral values, the existing morals, he's explaining that as in terms of Buddhism. He's saying, imagine that there is this line with 0 in the middle, 1 2 3 here, minus 1 2 3 here. So this being the bad and this being the good. So you have to make the good into bad and the bad into good to come here, 0, neutral. That's where the Superman is. When you're in that 0 neutral position, you become a Superman, because he's saying you become all powerful. That's the most powerful position, because then you have no good and bad. You just do whatever. You just do it. You overcome everything. No fear of anything, either good or bad. So when they say no fear of good, it means because you don't want to be good, you don't judge yourself if you're bad. That's how he explains it. Okay. He's talking about, so that is what he meant by overcoming the good values. He's saying how love can bring about the love within us. You should love God. And how the love of God can make you hate other gods. So he's saying how love, which is looked at as a good thing morally, you love God, but then it can also bring about bad things. So that's how you have to look at good things as what bad things can be aroused in you through that dogmatic view towards this is good. For the love of one, you can then do bad, to others. So, or be discriminating towards others because you love someone more. So he's talking about equating everything and not having good and bad, coming to that neutral position. That's what he said. You have to question all the good things, because to be a good Christian, you have to do this. To be a good Christian, you have to do that. So he's talking about questioning those things. And that's what, when you're not scared of being bad, you become a Hitler. Or when you think the bad things in you are actually the good things, you're trying to protect your people, you're trying to make them more, you're telling them you are more superior. So what are you doing? You're disguising the bad into good, and then that's how it makes you more powerful, because you actually believe in your mind you're being super good. It's that good within you that gives you power. The bad doesn't give you power. It makes you feel weak. When you think in your mind you're being bad, it doesn't make you feel powerful. It makes you feel weak. But if you believe you're doing good, then it gives you power. You feel guided, divinely guided, and you feel like there's the whole sort of world behind you, universe is sort of pushing you up. So that's how he explains it.
Where do we draw the line between science and morality? I'm wondering about if we go beyond good and evil, beyond the traditional ethical systems that we've inherited from both the Greeks and the Christians, and you sort of opposed both of those systems and suggested that we should go beyond those. But I'm wondering, a lot of civilizations in the past have had religious structures in place to act as defense mechanisms to protect them from new things, such as advances in science that should not be known or were regarded as taboo, because there was a fear or an intuition about what scientific discoveries might do to upset the social order. So I think those religious structures were there for a reason. But what I'm wondering is, if we sort of go beyond good and evil and we remove and we transcend Christian morality and go beyond that, are we giving science permission to do anything? For example, cloning people. Should we allow science to clone human beings?
Oh, he's smiling. he's talking about how cloning will not mean uh, that you're creating the exactly same person. Um, he is also he okay. He's saying the limitation of science is that it only deals with the material and physicality of things. So physically, you can create the same looking person, but consciously, the person might be completely different. Might be, saying will be completely different. It will be a different consciousness. So he doesn't see a difference between cloning a person and creating a baby in with a natural process. You're still providing a vessel for the consciousness to come in.
But won't it be the case, though, that if we give science permission to do this, won't these people who are created artificially take on a different social status? Might there not be racial prejudices against them, for instance? Won't it create a kind of new racism against artificial people, that sort of thing?
He talks very fast. Can you please slow down?
Nietzsche, you're going a little too fast. Just
there are
put a lid on it.
I lose my thought. He says something else and he says something else, and then I lose the racially discriminating. He's saying he's more worried about the failures in cloning. And those will be the things to look out for, to worry about, because but he's saying there will be a point where it will be perfected, the cloning process by humans. And when that happens, he's saying there might be people walking amongst us, and nobody will know if they are a clone or not. That's what he's saying.
I mean, the failures interest me too, because isn't it the case that for every biological vessel that comes into being, it's as you say, a vessel for a soul that has agreed to incarnate in that body. What is the status of these souls, the fate of these souls who incarnate in defective bodies? For example, I know they have a lot of problems, like when they cloned the sheep Dolly, she had morbid obesity. Often these animal clones have genetic flaws and problems, propensity to disease and so forth. Is that something that you think we should be willing to do to get to the perfect clones? To just have these failures and just accept that that's their fate?
What he's showing me is really scary.
Oh, wow.
He's saying that is already underway and it's already happening. He's saying. He shows a laboratory environment to me. So I can see in my mind a laboratory environment, and I can see experiments going on. And I asked him, is this some sort of recluse doing it? Sort of these reclusive scientists, are they doing it sort of hiding from everyone and where quite influential people are aware of it? And he gives me an indication. So these are some very big claims, which I'm really scared about. But that's what he said. He's talking about the big farmers doing them.
Uh-huh.
That's what he's talking about.
Scary stuff.
Scary stuff. Yes.
What,
So
can I ask this, though? I mean, why would souls agree to that fate, to incarnate in defective bodies? Why would they do that?
why do they do that? All right, that's Eric comes in.
Hi, Eric.
He says, "Hey, I think I need to come, talk,
Straighten some things out here.
some things out. So why would souls agree to do it?" He tells me, why do souls agree to come in, knowing that they can be aborted or they can be miscarried? It's for the same reason. He's saying they want to have that experience.
Uh-huh.
And probably these are the souls who were scientists, who are interested in knowing how that works. They want to take part in that experiment. For the same reason as the people do the experiments in this dimension, the souls that choose to incarnate also come for the same reason. Curious. They want to know, how this will turn out.
Uh-huh.
And take the risk
Right.
of having that sort of life if it doesn't turn out well.
Oh, wow. Okay. Fascinating. So it's basically for like the same reason that somebody would agree to a crappy life, or they want to find out what that kind of suffering is like.
Yeah. And he's saying there's also a chance of it being super successful,
Uh-huh.
and that will bring about a new experience as well.
Right.
Yeah. But he's again going back to it being a different consciousness, not the person who is being cloned. And he's also saying the same consciousness of the person can sometimes come in as well. Who's being cloned might be interested. And my God, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
And I just asked him if they will still have the amnesia of not knowing who they really are.
Uh-huh.
If the same person, let's say if you want to clone Michael Jackson, and if he's decided to come back as a clone of himself,
would he be able to dance as well? Would be the question there, right?
Would he know he's Michael Jackson, or he wouldn't remember?
Right.
He's saying some very interesting stuff. He was commenting on your comment about dancing. And he's saying he would be able to dance well.
Aha. Okay. So it's genetic. We're getting somewhere here. It's genetic.
Oh dear. He's saying that it's again a choice of the souls, but they wouldn't remember exactly everything. There might be a little bit of sort of pockets of memory they will remember, not entirely everything.
So if we cloned Howard Hughes, would the clone be as smart as the original Howard Hughes? Would he also be a genius?
Are you talking about when the same consciousness comes in, or a different consciousness?
I don't know. I guess I'm just fishing around here trying to figure out how this stuff works. I mean...
he is talking about if a different consciousness decides to come in when you create a clone of Howard Hughes. And he's saying... Okay, he's saying the instrument, the body, will genetically have the foundation to become that. However, the experience, the intention, as in the purpose of the consciousness or the reason or the contracts might differ. And
Okay.
it might, that same instrument can be used to play a different tune with the same intelligence, but a different tune.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. That's making sense.
So you can use the same instrument to play different tunes.
Mm-hmm.
So he's talking about the potential is there, but how that potential is used might differ, because the instrument has that potential.
Would this be the same thing if somebody, and I know, Mr. Nietzsche, it sounds like we're forgetting you, but we're coming back. It's there's a plan here. One more question.
Very interesting, everything. He's very.
One more question while we're on this. Like, would that also go for like an army of clones? If someone like cloned an army of identical individuals, they would all have like the same genetic foundations, but each one might play out a totally different life because of differing consciousnesses incarnating.
He's saying the clone will never have the same life as the original person.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he's saying because it's not just that one body. We forget here that we are a part of this complete collective, and everything plays a part in it. So everything plays a part in developing this consciousness into this character, this personality that we know as Howard Hughes or Friedrich Nietzsche or Eric Meadows. So there are many different parts that are at play in creating this personality. And the clone is born in a different era, in a different environment. Everything is different. There are different resources to use. So depending on that, everything will progress and a new personality will be born.
Now, is this something that we're going to be facing in the near future? This whole new experiment of cloning people? Is this something that's going to happen soon?
He again goes and talks about that it being in the process already. And if you are asking the question about how successful will it be, and when would we see a successful clone? Is that your question?
Yeah, exactly.
He says it will definitely happen. And so late. A successful clone without any issues will not happen in the 2000s. So he actually, because I'm very surprised to know this, because it's already underway, but it's perfecting a human will take time, they're saying, and it's probably in 3000s.
Oh wow. Okay, so it'll be a while.
Pretty late, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Nietzsche, after Darwin's philosophy came along in 1859 was when The Origin of Species was published, you announced the death of God. And one of your famous pronouncements that God is dead and that we no longer need him. I'm wondering what happened when you died and you went on to the other side and encountered God. I mean, what was that like for you? Was that a surprise, or you found out that God isn't dead?
He's such a funny person. He is. He was saying that idea came to him as a joke.
Ah. Some joke, man. That's a big joke. That's-
That's what he's saying. He thought it was very funny, that idea. Um,
so like one of Eric's pranks, only on the entire civilization. It's, instead of, yeah.
yeah, that's what he's saying. He's saying that idea just popped into his mind um, as a joke, and then it became more deeper. It went deeper and deeper and deeper, and he's saying it started making sense.
Mhm.
That idea. Can you ask me a question again, because I lost his talking to me.
I was just wondering what his encounter with God was like.
What his encounter was.
Yeah.
Um, did he like to play with people's mind? Because he's saying it was that particular statement was to play with the people's mind.
Yes, he's famous for doing that. Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh.
He was
So
a bit of a prankster. Yeah.
I see. All right. So he's saying he wanted to play with the people's mind when he said that, and I think he was that was more directed towards the religion at that time. So Christianity, death of God was more directed towards Christian, I think. So if you talk about God, when he met God in the afterlife, you're not talking about the God that Christians believe in, are you?
No, the actual entity, whatever it is. Yeah.
So he's saying that God is energy.
Yeah.
Okay. And as we know, the law, which stands true in all the dimensions, that energy cannot be destroyed or created. It only transforms from one form to the other. So the death of God was more of an idea than the actual death of a being.
Gotcha.
It was more of an idea, and he says when he went to the afterlife, he actually saw it. And he actually even sees now how that idea is dying. Of God, the idea of God is dying, and he's saying it's more true now, because people question that idea of that one being who is all controlling, omnipresent, and rules everyone's lives. He's talking about the death of that idea.
Okay.
So did he meet the energy which is which creates us all, or the energy that we are part of, the God energy? Yes. And I believe in that energy which we all have within us, and which we are all part and a representation of that energy.
Mr. Nietzsche, which is more important, science or religion? Or should we give equal latitude to both of them?
That's such an interesting question. Science or religion? Which is more important? He's saying both are enemies, according to him. Both do not represent the truth of life, of creation. Religion tries to, but both are trying to prove it in their own way. Religion does it like a bully, he's saying. And Science, how does science do it? Science does it in a more open way. But both are very important,
Okay.
because he's saying the religion feels like the real thing. It embodies more of the spirituality or the reality of creation. It embodies more of that because it gives, it includes the, or it acknowledges the intangible in some way. So it brings you closer to the reality of the creation. And science explains it, he's saying. If you ask me, he's saying, which one will help you understand it faster, then it's a religion. And science is just figuring it out, he's saying. So both are equally important.
I'm curious, Mr. Nietzsche, whether you think we should, okay, so they're both important. So we shouldn't get rid of our religions then. We need to keep them. We need to hang on to them.
For some time, yes, we need that for some time. At the moment, we need it.
Okay. So often there seems to be a relationship between creative geniuses, and mental illness. I'm wondering if you think that a certain amount of mental illness is necessary for creativity. Can you have a creative genius who isn't mentally ill in some way?
He's defining mental illness. He's saying that he's talking about how do you define mental illness. He says mental illness, he defines it as courage. And whoever is brave enough or has the courage enough to be different, you can call him mentally ill. Or he's saying we all have that within us. But some people try to put it out. Some people not try to. Some people decide to put it out there, their ideas, like he did. And for different reasons. And he's saying then they get labeled as mentally ill because they've put their ideas out there. But we all have crazy ideas in our heads. And the people who decide to put it out there, because they are not hiding them, they feel more free or liberated to play with their creativeness. And hence they come up with art, come up with ideas, however they want to express their creativity, it comes out. And they are able to express themselves creatively in a complete way, in a more aggressive way, in a more liberated way. than the people who choose to to not be open about their craziness, or they have fear within them, and they're more happy to be a part of the society and accepted. So he's saying that we all have that within us, the mental illness, but it depends on who is brave enough to let it flow and to be authentic. He's talking about authenticity. So so it's not really the mental illness that can be combined with the intelligence. It's really the courage to accept your mental illness and direct it in a way that you want. So,
Mr. Nietzsche, it seemed like your own mental illness like worsened as you got older, and then by the time you were 44, you had the famous psychotic break, where you just became catatonic for the last 10 or so years of your life. A lot of scholars think or suspect that that final period of catatonia was caused by syphilis. Was it caused by syphilis? Did you have syphilis, or was it something else that we don't know about?
did he hallucinate at all?
He might have. I'm not sure, though.
He is talking about there being different voices in his head.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they were arguing with each other.
Yes. That's clear from his last letters. You can see that. Yep. That's right.
Okay. And he wanted to believe, he thought each and every voice was correct. So he wanted to believe every voice in there. And it sort of drove him crazy because everyone was contradicting each other, he said. So he didn't know who he was, which voice was his. And that's how he explains the issue that he was facing, what was going on with him. And he's saying it was a lot to do also with how his philosophy was accepted in the society or not accepted in the society. And it was not easy for him to deal with the comments and everything and accusations. I don't know, was he accused of something? So it was hard on him to take the reactions of the society to what he said, which played a part in it. And it was as if he by himself most of the time. And he's saying that he was actually feeling the consciousness of everyone, because everyone's reality is truth. You believe in God, what you're saying is true. I don't believe in God, so what I'm saying is also true. So everyone's reality is their own truth. So he was feeling that. He wanted, but he couldn't understand what it was. And that's what he's saying. It was not entirely down to syphilis. It was also to do with his life and experience.
Okay, you did have syphilis then, Mr. Nietzsche?
He's saying yes.
Okay, yeah, that's what's suspected. Was this you contracted it from prostitutes, I take it?
Yes.
Was there a particular reason why you never married?
Um, I think he wanted to have different partners. He didn't want to be settled down with one person. That would be restricting. I think he felt that would be restricting. Yeah.
Okay. Was it? I mean, there's a kind of a misogynist strain in your writings, Nietzsche. Is it true that did you not like women, or was it something that you just didn't like them? You do sort of make fun of them a lot in your books. Did you not like them?
No, he said I liked them a lot.
Okay,
That was the reason.
I see. Gotcha. Have you reincarnated since you were incarnate? What's
Huh?
that? What's that now?
He was saying it fascinated him, women.
Yes.
He was quite fascinated by them. Um, yes. He talks about them like he is their artist, or yeah, he's very interested in women.
Were
All
you
sorts of,
then were you then just frustrated with them? You had a hard time relating to them? Did you just get frustrated with them?
um, he is no, he didn't have a hard time with them, or he didn't get frustrated with them. Um, I don't know, was he like, did he's giving me some information, but I just want to confirm from you because you know about him. Did he have a lot of women in his life?
I didn't get the impression that there was a lot, although
So a lot of sort of partners in his life, intimate partners. Is that
didn't
true?
seem like there were a lot. But I don't know. I mean, who knows? We're asking him, right? I mean, can't he
That's
tell us?
He just wanted to have one woman after the other.
Ah,
That's what he's saying. Um,
aha.
so it was like, yeah, that's
He
what
was
he's.
sexually voracious, in other
Yes.
words. Yes, okay. You had a very high sex drive. That often
That,
goes with people who are bipolar. They go into manic swings where they had experience high sexual energy. Were you in bipolar, Nietzsche?
really bipolar. Um, he says he always had the maniac episodes where he was super, super happy, super excited. Um, so it means you were bipolar then.
That's what it sounds like, yeah.
Yes, and but he's saying he didn't have a lot of those down moments. It was so 80%, 90% of the time he was in that maniac state. So I guess it's a yes.
Okay. You self-published most of your books. Is that something you would recommend for writers to do who have a hard time finding publishers? Should they just self-publish?
He's saying if you're sure about it, then yes.
Okay.
Head, do it.
Um, have you reincarnated yet since you were Friedrich Nietzsche? Have there been other incarnations since then?
Yes. Um, he's saying not as a human.
Ah,
He's a deer.
A
He
deer.
shows me a deer in woods.
Uh-huh.
He shows me a deer.
Why a deer?
Good, because he was explaining it before you asked why a deer. Because he's saying he wanted to have a strong connection with the nature, and he wanted to feel a peaceful. He wanted to be in a very peaceful state. Yeah, and wanted to be in sync with the nature and in a very peaceful state, and wanted to have a very spiritual experience. And he sees deer as being one of the creatures that can provide that.
That makes sense. Mr. Nietzsche, do you have an incarnation on the earth right now?
He's talking about the deer being the incarnation on the earth right now.
Oh, right now. Okay. All right. So that's going on right now. What would you say to someone who is skeptical that we're really talking to the real Friedrich Nietzsche? Mr. Nietzsche, what would you say to convince them that it really is you that we're dialoguing with here?
Oh my God. Oh my God, okay. He wants to come out and say something outrageous, I think. That's strange. He's saying, I'm not Friedrich Nietzsche, I'm God.
Ah.
Why that? But that doesn't make any sense. Why would he say that?
I don't know. It sounds like something he'd say. But like, how would we convince a skeptic?
How would we convince a skeptic?
Because there are a lot of people in our audience who will be skeptical that we can do this, that this possibility even exists to interview dead philosophers. How do we convince them that what we're doing is real?
Okay. He is talking about shocking people for some reason. He's saying sorry, the phone is distracting me. It's my dad calling. Let's go back to Peter. He is talking about the information that came through during the session. He's saying I would encourage people to go back and look at my work and see if that resonates with the information that came through. Also about your personal life, also about his personal life. You know, when we talked about, because he doesn't talk about him having a lot of women and prostitutes as something bad. Mm-hmm. He doesn't judge it. He looks at it as an experience. And I don't know if that information is available or not anywhere, but he says, if you go back and try to validate that information, you will find validations. You should be able to find validations.
One more question that just occurred to me before we hang up. On the subject of sexuality, Mr. Nietzsche, have we gone sort of crazy in this society with pornography? I mean, now it's so easily available now on the internet. Children can watch it and probably do. It seems like a kind of experiment now because we have the technology so we can make it easily available. Have we just sort of flipped out and made a mistake, or is it something that needs to happen?
I don't see it. Okay. He is talking about um, he's talking about two things. First is that it being helpful in some ways, which is a very new perspective for me, because it lets people take out the energy, build up energy, sexual energy, which can come out in a not a very good way. But it also, on the other hand, builds up that energy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed that. On the other hand, it what?
The other hand, builds up that energy
Oh, yeah.
because
Okay.
uh,
It feeds it.
it feeds it as
Yeah,
well.
right. That's what I.
So he is talking about how if there's a pressure in the water bottle, in the Coca-Cola bottle, he's showing me a Coca-Cola bottle with a lot of fizz in it. You know, when you shake it, there's a lot of pressure.
Right.
He's saying if we don't sort of pressure it so much, if we let, he's talking about how the culture is about sexuality in us, in humans. And he's saying the way we address that issue, the way we talk about it, the way we like to bottle it up is the main reason for pornography to pop up so big. And he's saying if we let it, he's talking about how good French culture is about it. But he's saying don't suppress it so much. Let people be more expressive, talk about it. So he's saying if it comes more towards the surface, the sexual relationships that we have, then the pornography culture will go down.
I see.
That's what he's saying.
Isn't it a sign, though, of a degenerate society? Because doesn't it? One tends to associate pornography coming in at the end of civilizations, like with the Romans and with the late Egyptians. It starts coming in. Isn't it a symptom of cultural degeneracy?
No, he doesn't agree with that.
Okay.
He's saying anything which is done in excessive way. He's talking about the culture of the way we eat now, the way we, the consumerism, the way we buy things, hoard things. Every part of our life in that way is a degeneration. So he doesn't want to point out just to the pornography and everything to do with sexuality as degenerating. He's saying we need to look at all of these things together. And sexuality is just one other expression of it. So he doesn't want to point out just to sexuality as the one degenerating thing. It runs deep down to one issue. Which he thinks is to do with freedom to express. He wants to see a society where people are able to express themselves without restrictions.
Beyond good and evil. That fits perfectly with this whole.
Beyond good and evil, without judgment.
Yeah.
Let them express themselves.
That all makes sense.
If you don't,
consistent.
Yeah, he says, if you don't do that, then it will sprout out in all these other ways.
Okay. Those are all the questions that I had for you today, Mr. Nietzsche. I want to thank you for being so gracious as to come down and chat with us for an hour. It's been fantastic. I've had great fun.
He says he would like to talk to you more. He wants to talk. So he says probably have a second session.
We could do a part two. Yeah, we could do a part two at some point.
Just with him, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he says he had fun and there are many things that on his mind that he would like to discuss.
Oh, that's great. Okay, then.
That scares me.
That scares you? Why does it scare you?
Yeah, because I have to listen to him and talk to you, which I don't know anything about him or philosophy or anything. So,
Oh, yeah, but you're doing a great job. I mean, that's
so
in a way that might actually help,
is it?
because your mind is clear from
Yes.
any
Yeah,
kind of preconceptions or bias.
yes. Okay. So, did you stop the recording or is it good?